Wildlife.
Hello, welcome to The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and welcome back to another edition of Lost and Found! If you haven't gotten the gist of what Lost and Found is by now, after all these episodes, then I don't know what to tell you. I keep forgetting how I phrased the opening of it. Alright, let's get into the show today. This is 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd. So much like all the other shows, apart from Incredible Story Studio, you've probably never heard of this show. That's because it's a real oldie. Okay, not that kind of old. Believe it or not, this show ran from 1999 all the way to 2002, so it was considered one of the early 2000 shows. And guess what network this was on? Yeah, Nickelodeon! Yay! A network that has a bunch of Lost content that you wouldn't believe is on their network. Like this thing. Does anybody remember this thing? I've never seen one episode, but I heard it was not that good. I'm probably wrong. Out of all the shows I've touched upon in Lost and Found, this is definitely one of them I could say is very unique. It's definitely a show that stuck out to me, merely just because of the premise of the show. The show focuses on a school bully named Eddie McDowd, who gets turned into a dog by a mysterious godlike figure named the Drifter. This is caused because of all of Eddie's wrongdoings, not just in school, but around town as well, seeing that he is a typical bully who steals lunch money, pushes people, and makes fun of people. In order for him to become a human again, he has to do 100 good deeds to make up for all of his wrongdoings. And before you say anything, yes, it's one of those talking dog shows. Eddie is able to talk in dog form, and the only person that can hear him and communicate with them is the last person who he bullied, which in this case is new kid Justin Taylor. Now, just reading the plot alone, it sounds like a very interesting show, and I got my hands on the first episode of the show. Unfortunately, this series has gone really lost within the media, so I'm not able to watch any other episodes other than the pilot, which actually I struck luck finding online. There are clips here and there about stuff that went on in season 2 and 3, I think. Might only just have been season 2, but the only episode I was able to see is the pilot because other episodes are either in other languages or they just have been taken down from YouTube. I was planning on watching a few of them, but of course they've been taken down from YouTube due to copyright strikes, and it's a big whole mess with it. So the pilot is the only one I was able to see, and I was very impressed with what I've seen in the pilot. The one thing I was definitely impressed with was the CGI on the dog's mouth as he was talking. Of course, from that point, there would be other shows that would focus on talking dogs. I'm pretty sure Dog with a Blog is the biggest example for a talking dog series, which I think we can all agree should stay lost. I'm not covering that show. No. No! But for a show that came out in the early 2000s, this was very impressive, and it didn't seem sort of cheesy or even awkward at any point. Also, when watching it, I got a very nostalgia feel to it because it just felt like one of those shows that came from the time it was airing. I got a similar vibe as I would get when watching Phil of the Future when I was a kid. The way it was shot, the sound effects in the background, the cheesy jokes, and the way everybody acted in the show. Watching it for the first time, you could definitely tell this was a show that was around in the early 2000s or even late 90s.
And now it's time to meet the characters.
Alright, so we obviously have Eddie McDowd, who's the dog in the show. He's our main character, the bully that was turned into the dog, who's voiced by Seth Green in Season 1, and then later Jason Harvey in Seasons 2 and 3. There is a human version of Eddie in the pilot, but we never get to see his face, nor do I think he's actually credited, but it really doesn't matter because he's only in like the first couple of minutes through the episode. We get Seth Green throughout the whole entire thing. You have Justin Taylor, who's the shy new kid at school, who's the only one that can hear and talk to Eddie as a dog. Then you have his sister Gwen Taylor, who's played by Morgan Kirby. And if you're a big music fan, you might know that name because she was in M83. Then you got Doug Taylor, who's the dad, Lisa Taylor, who's the mom, and then other characters like Sarifa. She's Justin's best friend. Fun fact, she's played by little Brenda Song, who would later go on to be a Disney Channel star. I didn't know that until I looked this up. And then you got this weird character named Spike, who dresses up like he auditioned for High School Musical and never got the part. He's played by Danny Tamborelli. And if you know that name, then you probably watched a lot of Nickelodeon, because he was on a bunch of different Nickelodeon shows. Again, I only saw the pilot of this show, so it's very hard for me to talk about this when I haven't really seen any other episodes of this show. The past couple of shows I've talked about, I've at least seen multiple episodes of. But if I'm being honest, I don't even think I need to see any more episodes of this show just to know how cool and interesting it was. Just by watching the pilot, I've gotten that vibe that it was going to be a very interesting and entertaining show. The fact that this character needs to do 100 good deeds in order to get to his goal of becoming a human again actually seems really interesting. And it also sends out a really good message to kids saying that they should do good things. Not saying that it should teach them a lesson that if they're bad, they'll be turned into dogs. But with a good group of kids, it can actually encourage them to do a certain amount of good things. In fact, since it's on Nickelodeon, they could have probably done like a sponsorship with like maybe an organization or something and had Eddie McDowd as like, I don't know, their mascot or something. I don't know, what does Nickelodeon do now? They do the Halo effect. You know, if this show was still running, I guarantee you Eddie McDowd would probably be the mascot for the Halo effect or something because it fits very well with it. Although I only saw one episode, I did read about a few other episodes. For instance, the second episode where something very interesting struck my eye when I read about it. The second episode of the show actually has a small focus on Eddie's personal life with his parents and his home. Apparently Eddie wanted to go home, but it turns out his parents are gone. And this is because the drifter took them away and he won't be able to see them, nor will they be able to return to their home until his 100 deeds are done. That is clever. Good job. I'm being serious. Good job. That little plot device in there with the parents is actually a genius idea to put in a show like this. Because I know for a fact one of the questions that I would have when watching the show is, what about Eddie's parents? Obviously, if a child does not come home after school, the parents are obviously going to be worried. Now, I understand nobody would really think about stuff like that, except for me, because I'm a very curious little boy. But the fact that they actually took time to explain how the family life was going to be because of this whole 100 good deeds thing is very clever for him to take away the parents, so this way there would be no confusion about his family life. So what happened? Why did it have a short run? Well, first, let's clear up the elephant in the room. Eddie did not make it to his 100 good deeds. As a matter of fact, the show didn't even make it to its 100th episode. The show only had 3 seasons and 40 episodes. After 2002, the show was canceled. That's a bit of a bummer. But why? This show seems pretty good. The main problem with this show was because of ratings. The ratings were going up, but one day it just went downhill. Oh. So after reading a bunch of things about this show, I think I've gotten the gist of why this show went downhill from when it first began. And I think it has something to do with everything that took place after season 1. Now the first one I'm going to say isn't exactly one of the reasons why I think the show went downhill, but for me it just personally bothers me. I discovered this on YouTube. So the theme song of the show for season 1 was a very unique song. And it fit the show very well.
I'm Eddie McDowd. I'm a dog and I talk. I used to be a kid, a bad kid. But then I messed with the wrong guy. Eddie, you're failed as a human. Who turned me into a dog? Can you believe this? That freak turned me into a dog. To be a kid again, I have to do 100 good deeds. And the only person who can hear me talk is the last person I picked on. You? Now I'm living with this kid and his family. They love me, but they treat me like a dog. Once upon a time I was a kid, but now I'm paying for all the things that I did. But I'm not the same as you. I'm the one who leaves the blues. I was running free, but now you got me on a leash and I want.
Better get started on them good deeds.
That was the theme song for Eddie McDowd. It fit very perfectly. It had a nice little introduction to the show. It even had a little message from the drifter to kind of remind you that he's behind all of this. Well, that theme song only lasted for season 1. This is the theme song for season 2 and 3.
I'm Eddie McDowd. I'm a dog and I talk. everybody having a fun. Until the fellas started calling. And the girls start to call. Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
Yeah, that's right. It's your typical "Who Let the Dogs Out" song. Because we can't go one show or movie, one damn show or movie that revolves around a dog without including "Who Let the Dogs Out." Shaggy Dog. Oh, that's the only one I could think of. But you get it. I don't exactly understand why the theme song had to change. I think the first one was a really great opener to the whole entire show. Season 2 just kind of like kills the whole vibe of the show, and honestly, if that was my first time watching the show and that was the opening tune, I probably wouldn't have watched it. Now, while watching that new opening of the show, you may have noticed a few things that were a bit different, not just with the theme song, but with a few other things that I'm going to point out. One of them being Seth Green. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that he voiced Eddie as the dog, but in Season 2 and 3, he was voiced by Jason Harvey. There's a rumor going around that Seth was actually embarrassed about playing this role, so he left, and they gave the role to a guy named Jason Harvey, who I don't think was a good pick for this role. I can't find any episodes with him as this character, but just listening to his voice in this opening, yeah, it's not working out. I can understand why he wasn't a big hit. Finally, the other thing you might have noticed in that theme song was there's no Morgan Kirby. She's gone. Where did she go? Well, that's because Morgan Kirby's character Gwen, the sister in the family, was only present for the first season. Supposedly in Season 2, her character joined the foreign exchange student program, and she switched homes with another character named Tori Sloan. Sloan? S-L-O-A-N. Sloan. Yeah, alright. From what I've read and heard, Morgan supposedly got tired of the show and eventually went on to do her music stuff. So they gave this character her place. Again, I have not watched any episodes with this character, but I heard she was a bad extension to the series. And that's all I can comment on that. So, in the matter of one season, a few things changed. Ever since then, the ratings for this show have been downhill, and it got to the point where the ratings were so low that Nickelodeon decided to cancel the whole show. I'm not sure if there were plans to do a season 4, there probably were because the show was pretty popular, but because of the low ratings, they canceled the show. So Eddie never got to finish his 100 deeds, or maybe he did and we just never got to see it on TV. Who really knows? He could still probably be a dog out there. Maybe he liked being a dog. He's probably dead as well if he's a dog, because dogs don't last very long. I think they last, what, like 10 years? 7? No, not 7. 10? Yeah, probably 10 years. I don't know, I don't really have a dog, so I don't know. I try looking it up, but I get confused a lot with the way that dog lives work. See, cats are a different thing. Cats have 9 lives. Overalls. With all the stuff I've read and watched about this show, I definitely think it was one of Nickelodeon's glorious shows that was perfect for the time that it was in. The premise was really interesting. If I could find any more clips or episodes of it, I would definitely watch it. It is a shame that they canceled it. I think, this is just me, I'm not one for reboots or remakes or anything, but I think if they brought back 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd, I don't think I'd have a problem with that. Because the show is just full of so much opportunities that, you know, you could do a lot with the show, seeing that this character needs to do 100 good deeds. Supposedly, I think he only did like 36 good deeds, so he still had a long way to go. But there's just so much you could do with the show and all the different deeds he could have done. So if Nickelodeon brought back that show, I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. I definitely wouldn't. And I'm not one for remakes. Yeah, the Powerpuff Girl remake? Yeah, that was a good idea. So those are my thoughts and talk about Eddie McDowd, 100 Deeds for Eddie McDowd. Now I want to hear what you have to think about it. Have you ever seen this show or heard about it? If you haven't, does it sound like an interesting show, and would you watch it if it came back on TV? Do you agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video? Tell me all your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing. Hey there! Thanks for watching the episode. Make sure you give it a like if you enjoyed what you see. Maybe even subscribe. I don't know. Do whatever you want. Make sure you come back next week, though, because we got another good one coming up. This show I'm really excited to talk about because it was one of my personal favorites, and I'm very disappointed it's not on anymore. Yay!
I'm Eddie McDowd.
Wild like